Imagine you're home alone with your young son when there's a knock at the front door. A man claiming to be a census taker. Little do you know he's really a sex offender, a predator, right there on your doorstep. Well, it happened to a young mom in New Jersey. We're going to talk to her live in just a moment, tell her what she did to bring that guy down. But first, John Berman has her story.
The Census Bureau now has 635,000 temporary workers fanned out across the country trying to count us. When Amy Schmalbach from Pennsauken, New Jersey opened her door earlier this month to this man, she assumed she would be safe. After all, he was one of these government-employed census workers. But
I looked closely at his face and I realized I recognized this man from the New Jersey State Police Sex Offender Registry.
Amy checked her computer and found Frank Cuney had served 4 years in prison for crimes including endangering the welfare of a child and inappropriate contact with children. She notified the authorities, who quickly put him under arrest. But how did this man get the census job at all? In late April, Cuney applied to the Census Bureau under an alias. He passed an initial background check and was sent to 4 days of training. He was fingerprinted during training, and on May 1st, these fingerprints came back flagging him as a sex offender. But the government couldn't find him until May 5th, after Amy had already called the police and after Cuney had already started making house visits, collecting people's names and dates of birth.
This is an isolated incident.
The Census Bureau says it tries to take every step possible to ensure the public's safety. In 2000, with 680,000 census workers, there were only 9 allegations of misconduct. Compare that to 180 assaults on census workers themselves. Still, Frank Cuney is in jail for false representation and impersonating a public official, only after several people opened their doors to him. For Good Morning America, John Berman, ABC News.
And we also learned that the U.S. Attorney's Office is now filing criminal charges against him. But joining us now is Amy Schmalbach. Also joining her is the host of America's Most Wanted, John Walsh, because she said this was her America's Most Wanted moment. Describe what happened there.
Well, I was home alone one evening and get a knock at the door. My son and I were home, and I looked out and saw this gentleman on my front porch with his census badge and the census bag, and knowing that I had misplaced my survey and didn't get it in, I expected from the commercials also to that these individuals would be coming door to door. So I went out front, and the guy identified himself as Jamie and asked me if he could ask a few questions and that he would be on his way soon. So he asked how many people lived in my home and whether I owned or rented the house, and he asked for our specific names and for our dates of birth, which right there should have been a flag. And then in the middle of all this, my son tried to make his way out onto the front porch, and when I turned my back to push him back in, I just had an overwhelmingly bad sense about this person.
Was this a gut feeling that you had?
It was just a gut feeling. I have never had that happen to me before. It just literally washed over me. My stomach dropped, and I just felt the urge to get away from this person. And when I turned around, he had gotten a little closer to me. He was very shifty when he was writing down the answers to the questions that I was answering, almost wanting me to invite him in, like he had no place to write. And something about his eyes, they were just darting all over the place, and I was trying to add all these things up in my mind. Where had I heard this name before? Why did he look so familiar? And right after I handed out my home telephone number, it dawned on me that I had seen him from the New Jersey State Police Sex Offender Registry.
So you were able to get him, you know, you completed the census.
I completed the census.
He walked away.
He did. He lingered for a moment in front of me and said, oh, okay. And I figured we were finished and just wanted to get in the house.
And so you said you recognized him. Do you often check?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I would say for a good 6 years now, since my little nephew came along, and then of course once my son was born, I check about every 2 months. I want to know who my neighbors are, and in this day and age, I don't think you can be too careful.
And you knew that he was living in your area?
Yes, he had always stood out in my mind because he had quite a few different offenses, including the sexual assault offenses, but also he has like 16 different aliases, and that I found incredible that this person was living, you know, less than probably a quarter mile from my home.
But you know, Amy, good for you for being aware. And I see John Walsh, he's just nodding along right here because see something, say something, be proactive. This is a perfect example of that, John.
Go Amy. Great mom, interested in who lives in her neighborhood. I say the sex offender registries work. There are about 100,000 convicted sex offenders out there that are in violation of their parole or probation. They could be anywhere. But, you know, I'm a great believer that people have to be aware, get involved. I mean, she made the call. And, for example, this week on America's Most Wanted, I've been doing it 23 years. 7 people were caught because of the show this week, an all-time record, which reaffirms my belief that people can make a difference. This woman had that gut feeling, checks the registry, and takes a guy off the streets that had access to people's houses by just making that phone call and saying, he gave me the creeps, I've seen him on, excuse me, I've seen him on the registry, and I'm going to make that call.
The Census Bureau said that because of budgetary reasons that they're not able to fingerprint everybody who applies initially, that in the second phase they do fingerprint, which they did with this guy. But they don't check the fingerprint results until after they have been sent out. And John, this is kind of those loopholes that you say predators look for, isn't it?
Well, if you're asking someone to take personal information and to go to someone's home and look in the home, you have to spend that money to vet them. You absolutely have to make sure that they're not a convicted sex offender or somebody that can do something dangerous with this information. They're looking right into your home. Right. Some of them come into your home. Come on. I mean, it's not about an issue of money. It's about an issue of safety. Absolutely. You're asking the average citizen to trust the federal government during the collection of the census.
And like Amy said, we've seen the commercials, and you knew that you hadn't filled out your form, so there's no reason why that person wouldn't be there. But you're relying on that person not being, of course, a sex offender. So what's your message, Amy, to other that are watching this morning about this?
Well, absolutely, to other parents and even to other citizens. I'm not sure if every state has a sex offender registry or even an inmate registry, just to be aware, be vigilant of who your neighbors are. You can never be too safe. That's how I feel about it. And we're not trying to, or at least I'm not trying to out individuals that are living quietly and have paid their debt to society and are moving on with their life. But certainly in this individual's case, he was absolutely had malicious intent. He didn't use his real name to get through the process. And hopefully, I would love the Census Bureau to take notice of what's happened here and to adjust their process. I've written to my local legislators and to the president if he's watching, and hopefully they'll realize that just waiting those few extra days before they hand these individuals identification and all the materials they need to go door to door, it would save that many more people from either having their identity stolen or possibly from, you know, being in harm's way.
Right. You should put this woman on your payroll. She is just terrific as a spokesperson.
This is a good mom. This is a good mom.
Fantastic mom.
This is a good mom.
We give celebrities a hand. We give Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And John, always so good. The work that you're doing. Bless you.
Well, this week was a great week. The United States Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the Adam Walsh Act. Now we will have national sex offender registries, and it allows the dangerous, the worst criminals, the child molesters and rapists who want to get out early on parole or probation. It now allows civil confinement of those guys when a psychiatrist says, like the guy who killed little Chelsea King in San Diego and Amber Dubois, only 5 years, he got out early, parole and probation not monitored, and he killed 2 little girls during that 3 years that he was on parole and probation. It now says that we will be able to keep these guys in jail. A psychiatrist said at that guy's trial, he should never be let out. He should never be put on probation. He should have been in the rest of his life. We'll now be able to keep these dangerous creeps off the streets because of the Supreme Court judges. The Adam Walsh Act is now constitutional.
Bless you. I know how hard you've been working for that, John.
For years.
Amy, again, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you.